In 1997, millions of children across the world were reading the same book. Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. There was magic, there were dragons, there was a secret school. But somewhere in the book, there was a name that most people passed over without noticing: Nicolas Flamel. And with that name, Rowling was blurring the line between reality and fiction. This name was not made up. Nicolas Flamel had truly lived. He was believed to have searched for the Philosopher's Stone, and according to some, he had found it. The world of Harry Potter was not entirely a product of imagination. It was built upon real history, real people. Alchemy was real. The plague was real, and Nicolas Flamel was real. Rowling did not choose this name at random. Flamel was a genuine detail embedded within a fictional story. And this small detail on its own raises a peculiar question. If Flamel truly lived, how much of what is told about him is real? Because in this story, some things are certain, and the certain things make the uncertain ones even darker. Now, Nicolas Flamel. The year is 1330. Nicolas Flamel is born in a small French town, the child of a modest family. We know almost nothing about his childhood, but by the mid-14th century he appears in Paris, young, humble, yet someone who can read and write. In that era, literacy is no small privilege. Flamel uses it. He opens a small shop near the church of Saint-Jacques-la-Boucherie. He copies manuscripts. He assists notaries. He draws up documents. An ordinary tradesman. And Paris at that time is an extremely lively city. Theologians, philosophers, and alchemists circulate around the university. There are those put on trial for charges of sorcery. Mysterious books pass from hand to hand in secret. Alchemy in this period is not a foolish pastime. This is important to understand, because today when we say alchemist, we picture someone conjuring spells over a cauldron. But in the 14th century, alchemy is the most serious intellectual pursuit of the age. A field rooted in Aristotelian physics, carrying the accumulated knowledge of the Islamic world, one that the brightest minds of Europe are working on. Jabir ibn Hayyan, the 8th century Arab chemist, systematically argues that matter can be transformed. Roger Bacon, the 13th century genius from Oxford, sees alchemy as a method for unlocking the secrets of nature. Thomas Aquinas debates alchemy. The papacy permits alchemy, at times bans it, then permits it again. Because the question is serious. Can matter be transformed? Can death be overcome? These are not absurd questions. These are the most serious questions of the age. And Flamel lives among books in a city where these questions drift through the air. Every day he copies those books. Every day he passes through those ideas. Aristotle, Ibn Sina, Bacon. Transformation, purification, perfection. For a scribe, these words are not merely ink. They are possibilities. One day, the date is disputed, sources differ. A strange book comes into Flamel's hands. According to some accounts, a stranger sells it to him in his shop, his face unseen. He simply holds out the book and asks for 2 florins. Flamel pays. The man leaves, never to appear again. This is no ordinary book, bound in copper. 21 pages. The page is not of paper, but of tree bark. Every 7th page, the text stops. In its place come symbols. Strange figures. Dragons, serpents, crosses, suns. Incomprehensible drawings. On the cover, a name. Abraham the Jew. Below, a few more words. Prince, priest, Levite, astrologer, and philosopher. And inside, a promise. The making of the Philosopher's Stone, for one who knows the formula. Flamel does not let this book go. As a scribe, he has spent years working with secret texts, encoded writings, manuscript pages filled with symbols. But this book is different. This book takes hold of him. He works on it for years. He tries to decode the symbols. He examines the pages in daylight, in candlelight. His wife Pernell joins in this search. Together, they sit over the book through the nights. They discuss every figure, every symbol, every ciphered line. They cannot understand. Finally, he makes a decision. Some pages of the book draw on Kabbalah, the Jewish mystical tradition. If anyone can solve this secret, it is someone who keeps that tradition alive. There is a problem. Jews no longer exist in France. They were expelled in 1306. Flamel must go to Spain. He sets out under the pretext of a pilgrimage to Santiago de Compostela. A long journey, a dangerous journey. And there, in Toledo, he encounters an elderly sage named Maestro Conches. When the man sees the book, he is said to recoil. It had been thought lost for centuries. According to some accounts, Conches weeps with excitement. His hands trembling, he turns the pages. Then slowly he begins to speak. He explains what the symbols mean, which formula points to what, which substance, when combined with which other, transforms. Together they set out toward France, but Conches falls gravely ill on the road, and he dies before reaching Lyon. Flamel returns to Paris alone. With him, the notes he received from Conches. In his mind, the cipher is falling into place. At home, his wife Pernelle waiting for him. Pernelle is waiting at the door that night. She looks at Flamel's face. She understands something, and together they go inside. And now, both of them know what they are searching for. But at this point, let us look at Paris itself. Because Flamel returns to this city while it is deep in catastrophe. The Black Death, the plague that leapt to the ports of Italy in 1347, is ravaging the continent. Flamel's Paris in those years is a city of the dead. When you step outside in the morning, you may find your neighbor, who was healthy yesterday, lying before their door. Corpses wait to be collected. Churches overflow. Priests are compelled to bury the very infants they have just baptized. The city's population dwindles by hundreds of people per day at the height of the plague. Estimates vary, but somewhere between a third and half of Europe's population is wiped out in this epidemic. Think about that number. 1 out of every 2 or 3 people. At least one person from every family. Sometimes all of them. Flamel lives right in the midst of this period. And this period explains the hunger for alchemy. Faith in God is shaken. The church cannot provide answers. People are searching for another door. If death is this arbitrary, if saint and sinner, child and elder, are all extinguished equally, then perhaps there is a way to overcome death. Perhaps the philosopher's stone is real. Perhaps someone has found it. In this environment, the meaning of alchemy shifts. Once it was about unlocking the secrets of matter. Now it transforms into the last hope of escaping death. And Flamel, right in the heart of this desperation, enters his laboratory with a book in hand. In the years that follow, Flamel's life changes entirely. He works in the back room of his shop. He conducts experiments. The light burns late into the night. And then, January 21st, 1382, Paris. Something happens that day. Mercury, that fluid, elusive metal, is transformed into silver. Flamel records that moment. Pernelle is there too. They look on together. Their hands trembling, their eyes glistening. What they have searched for years in a vessel beneath the candlelight before their eyes. A few months later, on April 25th, a second transformation. This time gold. Real, pure, weightable gold. Flamel weighs this gold, then has it weighed again. As proof, he cuts a thin strip and sets it aside. 2 dates, 2 transformations. The text that conveys these to us will be printed 2 centuries after Flamel's death. But what happens in Paris after 1382 is very concrete. The Paris archives from this point onward paint a clear picture. Flamel purchases property, not one, but several. He makes donations for churches. He has shelters built for the poor, 14 almshouses, significant donations to 3 churches, 7 hospitals. These are recorded. These are documented. And he commissions frescoes for cemeteries. These frescoes still stand today in some Paris churches. And there is something strikingly notable about them. Alchemical symbols. The serpent. The dragon. Figures representing the transformation of lead into gold. Did Flamel choose these deliberately? Most likely yes. Because in the Middle Ages, when commissioning religious paintings, it is the patron who determines what is to be depicted. And Flamel chooses these symbols. He skillfully places them within religious iconography. An alchemist who sees them understands. One who cannot see them walks out looking at church frescoes. This is the signature of a careful man. A man who does not give himself away but leaves a trace. So what is the source of his wealth? Flamel was already married to a woman of property. He married Purnell in 1368. Purnell is a widow with inheritances from her 2 previous marriages. So through this marriage, Flamel gains not only a wife, but also a share in a certain fortune. With scribal income and shrewd property investments, this wealth can be grown. But a question remains. Flamel's will is drawn up before a notary in 1416, and when historians examine this will, something catches their attention. The will does not match the immense fortune described in the legend. Flamel is wealthy, yes, but this will does not accord with the portrait of the man producing endless gold that will be told in the centuries to come. This detail reveals the greatest contradiction at the heart of the legend. If you have truly found the philosopher's stone, if you can truly produce as much gold as you wish, why would you leave a will? Why would you divide up your property? Why would you leave documents signed before a notary in the Paris archives? Would an immortal man live a normal life? Legend sometimes surpasses reality by a great distance. On March 22, 1418, Flamel dies at the age of 88. While the plague ravages the continent, while everyone around him dies, this man lives for 88 years. He is buried at the church of St. Jacques-le-Boucherie, the very church to which he made donations. He designed his own gravestone himself in 1410, 8 years before his death. Upon it are carved the figures of Christ, St. Peter, and St. Paul. Below, alchemical symbols, a final signature. This gravestone still exists today at the Musée de Cluny in Paris. You can see it. You can touch it. The designs Flamel drew with his own hand, carved into stone. But there is a problem. The gravestone exists. The church records exist. His will exists. The burial certificate exists. Everything exists. Only Flamel is missing. When the grave is opened, the coffin is empty. According to some accounts, there is not even a coffin. Only an empty hollow beneath the earth. How is this explained? Thieves? Perhaps someone wished to take his bones. But why? Was the secret of alchemy hidden in Flamel's bones? When this question is asked, there is no answer. And where there is no answer, the legend grows. Life in the city goes on. Flamel is forgotten for a time. Years pass. Decades. A generation. 2 generations. And one day in Paris, whispers begin. First among the cemetery watchmen. Then among the shopkeepers of the district. Then to more distant neighborhoods, that book, the book of Abraham the Jew, Flamel hid it. Buried it somewhere. Never gave the complete formula to anyone. And those who know the formula are immortal today. The whispers grow, the stories multiply. And one night, someone breaks into the cemetery and opens Flamel's grave. The coffin is there. The gravestone is there. The symbols are there. But it is empty inside. Flamel is gone. Not even a bone. Paris reads this news in only one way. Flamel had not died. He had merely disappeared. He had drunk the elixir of immortality, transformed his body, and quietly slipped away. Where to? No one knows. But reports began arriving from the 4 corners of the world. In 1612, the traveler Paul Lucas writes that he encountered a Turkish dervish in Bursa. The dervish names 4 alchemists for him, those still living. One of them is Nicolas Flamel. He is said to be living in a monastery in India. In the same century, someone in Paris claims to have seen him at an opera night. He is talking with someone recounting Flamel's story and asks, "Are you Flamel?" The man smiles. He vanishes into the crowd. In the 18th century, a French painter writes in his own will that he met Flamel. He recounts the conversation that passed between them. The man he describes appeared not 88 but 40 years of age. Flamel had said this to him, "Knowing everything is not enough. You must know the timing." The painter wants to ask what he means, but the man has already turned and walked away. None of these stories have any proof. But all of them show one thing: the number of those who wish to search for Flamel never diminishes. And this search keeps the legend alive. By the 16th and 17th centuries, alchemy in Europe is at its peak. Rulers make room for alchemists in their courts. Aristocrats cover the costs of laboratories. Because the promise is simple and supremely attractive: endless gold, endless life. In this period, the old masters are put back into circulation. And Flamel is a perfect name. He truly lived. He truly became wealthy. He truly commissioned frescoes bearing alchemical symbols, and his grave is empty. In 1612, a book is printed in Paris, Le Livre des Figures Hiéroglyphiques, written in the first person in Flamel's own voice. Inside those dates of transformation, formulas, symbols, almost as if it had come from Flamel's own hand. Years later, in 1761, the French historian Étienne Villain investigates, and he reveals that the true author of the book is a publisher named P. Arnaud de la Chevalerie. This man deliberately chooses Flamel. Alchemy books sell well in that period. A book bearing the name of a real master is far more valuable than an anonymous one or one under the author's own name. 2 centuries have passed since Flamel's death. No one can object. This is one of the most calculated publishing moves in history, and it works. The book sells widely. And from here, the Flamel legend explodes again. Soon after, other texts attributed to Flamel begin circulating: alchemical recipes, ciphered notes, mysterious letters. And Isaac Newton too encounters this name. In Newton's personal notes, Flamel's dragons appears. One of the greatest scientists the world has ever known is taking notes on the alchemical symbols described by Flamel. This is no small detail. It is evidence of the belief that Flamel may have succeeded. Flamel's house is searched again and again. Walls are opened, floors are dug up, beams are pried out and examined. The ground floor of the house at 51 Rue de Montmorency is nearly torn apart entirely. Each time, nothing is found. And each failure to find anything thickens the legend by one more layer. Perhaps he buried it deeper. Perhaps it is somewhere else. Perhaps in a place only the one meant to find it can find. There is also this: some of the frescoes and cemetery designs commissioned by Flamel had already vanished into history by the 17th century. That is, the most tangible traces of alchemy disappear at precisely the moment the legend explodes. Is this a coincidence, or did someone erase these traces? In the 18th century, the Enlightenment arrives. Science dismantles alchemy from within. Antoine Lavoisier systematically defines the elements. Chemistry is born as a separate science, and alchemists are pulled one by one into the shadow of history. Flamel too is shadowed, but he does not remain in shadow. In the 19th century, with the wave of Romanticism, mystery, occultism, and ancient secrets rise again. Victor Hugo, in Notre Dame de Paris, is openly captivated by the dark mysticism of the Middle Ages. The composer Erik Satie is enchanted by Flamel. Masonic lodges count Flamel among their masters. Albert Pike makes direct references to Flamel in the foundational texts of Freemasonry. And this is an interesting cycle. Every age rewrites Flamel according to its own needs. Alchemists make him the great master. Occultists make him the mysterious sage. Romantics make him the tragic hero. And Rowling makes him the anchor of reality. In the 20th century, the name seeps entirely into popular culture: films, novels, video games. And in 1997, Harry Potter carries him to millions. But here Rowling does something very important. She does not use Flamel as a mere reference. She makes Flamel's story a part of the very foundation of reality in the Harry Potter world. Alchemy is taught at Hogwarts. The Philosopher's Stone exists. There is a wizard named Nicolas Flamel. None of this is Rowling's invention. These are the reflection of an age that truly existed, of people who truly existed, of fears that truly existed. Flamel is one of the anchors of reality in that magical world. And this anchor sustains the immortality of the Flamel legend. A generation grew up with Harry Potter and came to know Nicolas Flamel. And now a new generation will come to know him too. And so the legend reaches, once again, yet another generation. Now let us take a step back and ask this: who was this man? Real or legend? In truth, both. And the line lost between those two things is the very essence of the story. Flamel lived from 1330 to 1418. He opened a shop in Paris, sold books, married, acquired property, made donations. He designed his own gravestone 8 years in advance. All of this is real, and after his death, his grave was found empty. That too is real. The rest, the dates of transformation, the book of Abraham the Jew, the journey to Toledo, the immortality, these are one layer built upon another. And these layers are woven with such craft that it is no longer possible to tell which is real and which is story. But let us consider this. A man designs his own gravestone 8 years in advance. He places alchemical symbols upon it. He commissions frescoes with alchemical figures for churches. And when his grave is opened, it is found empty. This is either a very great coincidence or very careful planning. A scribe knows, above all else, the power of words and symbols, how a text is read, how it is interpreted, how it survives. A scribe knows this better than anyone. Flamel is perhaps history's most calculated myth builder. Perhaps he himself drew the first draft of his own legend. Perhaps the empty grave was not an accident, but the very final scene. Perhaps this is Flamel's true achievement. Not the creation of the philosopher's stone, but the transformation of himself into a mystery. A mystery still unsolved centuries later, still sought, still spoken of. The oldest surviving house in Paris still stands there today, 51 Rue de Montmorency. It is said to have been built by Flamel in 1407. Today it is a restaurant. You can go inside and sit down. You can eat between stone walls. And perhaps you will think, the stones touched by this man's hands are still here. Where's that book? Where's that formula? Who placed Flamel in that empty grave? Or who removed him? And if he is truly still alive, where is he today? Under what name? In what city? In the back room of which shop? Alchemists said for centuries, to find the stone, you must first transform yourself. Flamel applied this word for word. Whether he found the philosopher's stone, we do not know. But one thing he achieved is certain. He transformed himself into a story. And stories do not die. Flamel's immortality is evident. Not through the philosopher's stone, through story. Do you think Nicolas Flamel could truly have solved the secret of immortality? Or a more important question, if you had such a chance at the cost of watching all those you love fade away one by one, would you want to live until the end of time? Let us meet in the comments. History is full of dark and layered stories like this one, and I will tell you all of them